As we turn now to Yemen, which has been the focus of growing international concern over insecurity and Islamist extremism, U.S. officials say the suspect in the failed Christmas Day bombing is now providing valuable intelligence in hunting the U.S.-born Yemeni cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, who the Obama administration's approved for assassination. He's been accused of having ties to the failed Christmas Day airline bombing as well as the shooting at Fort Hood. Well, last week, the Washington Post reported the U.S. military teams and intelligence agencies are deeply involved in secret joint operations with Yemeni troops that have killed scores of people, including civilians and suspected al-Qaeda leaders in recent weeks. The operations have been approved by President Obama and involve several dozen troops from the Joint Special Operations Commander, JSOC. U.S. ally Saudi Arabia has also launched attacks inside Yemen. Earlier today, Yemeni rebels said Saudi Arabia killed 15 people in a bombing near the Yemen-Saudi border. Well, Democracy Now!'s Anjali Kamat recently spoke to Yemeni journalist Nasser Arabyee, who writes for the Dubai-based Gulf News and the Cairo-based Al-Ahram weekly. She asked him about his expectations from a recent international conference on Yemen.
The London conference, which was called by Gordon Brown, Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, the Yemeni people the Yemeni people are expecting from this conference to help Yemen in a way that makes it get out of its problems, not to make it worse. Yemeni people at the same time are very concerned that this conference will come out with any sort of direct intervention to Yemen, because this will make it worse and worse.
Nasser, Yemen has been very much in the news here in the United States as a haven for al-Qaeda. As a long-time Yemeni journalist, what do you see as the main concerns of people in Yemen?
In fact, Yemen now is facing three challenges, at least, major challenges, and al-Qaeda is only one of them. But unfortunately, the Western media is focusing only on al-Qaeda, and al-Qaeda maybe is only, as I told you, is only one of these three challenges. I mean the armed rebellion in the north, and the separation calls in the south, and al-Qaeda, and also there is the third challenge, which is the economy. There's a lot of economic problems and economic hardships the people are facing.
Can you talk a little bit about each of these challenges? You mentioned four, one being the war in the north, which has been going on since 2004, the separatists in the south, and the presence of al-Qaeda, and also you mentioned the economy. Latest figures I've seen, unemployment is up to 40%.
Exactly, yes. So the armed rebellion in the north started in 2004, but it stopped, and it was on and off during this time. But now it started in August 2009, and now it's still carrying on. It is still going on. And I think now internally it is the biggest challenge Yemen is facing. It is the biggest, and I mean for Yemenis, it is the biggest. And the separation calls in the south is the second challenge Yemen is facing. But as I said, it is not that challenge, because it can be politically solved.
And in terms of the rebellion in the north, can you talk a little bit about how many people have been displaced by this? What the Yemeni government has been fighting this all-out war against the north. What's been the effect on people living in the area?
Unfortunately, more than 200,000 people displaced because of this war in the north. And the number is increasing, and the situation is getting worse and worse.
How easy is it for you as a journalist to go to the north and cover what's happening in the north?
Unfortunately, nobody can go, and this is a big problem. The government will not allow anyone to go there, and this is a problem.
And talk about the recent news reports of U.S. drone attacks against al-Qaeda targets. Also reports of Yemeni airplanes bombing al-Qaeda targets. A number of civilians have died in some of these attacks.
There were about 50 civilians who were killed in one of these strikes, which targeted Al-Qaeda training camp.
Who carried out these strikes?
The Yemeni government. The Yemeni government with support from the American government.
Talk about the U.S. relationship with Yemen.
Without the help of United States and Saudi Arabia, I think Yemen will collapse if there is no. But at the same time, the United States should be very careful in providing the assistance to and the support to Yemen, because if, for example, if there is any direct intervention, it will be in the interest of Al-Qaeda, not in the interest of combating Al-Qaeda. The United States focuses on the intelligence and security, and yes, military. For example, they fund now special forces, or what they call anti-terror special forces. So the American government always focuses on the security issue at the expense of the development and democracy, and this is in fact not good, and because they can also combat terrorism by supporting development and the other issues.
And the Saudi support for Yemen?
It's different. The Saudi now is supporting Yemen in everything, to the extent that they were involved in the war against the rebels.
Al-Qaeda has had a long presence in Yemen. It didn't just appear this past year. Would you say the Yemeni government has allowed Al-Qaeda to grow in Yemen? Or have they been taking a strong stance against Al-Qaeda over these past several years?
In fact, before December 17th, 2009, the government has been some lenient with Al-Qaeda, or the government was using Al-Qaeda sometimes in some political things, and this is a very bad thing. For example, against some political opponents, but after December 17th, I think the government was clear to declare the war against Al-Qaeda, and there is now very strong crackdown against Al-Qaeda in Yemen.
You mentioned these multiple crises that Yemen is going through right now. What's been the impact of the Yemeni government's military response to the war in the north, to the rebellion in the north and the uprising in the south on civil liberties in the country? How are activists and journalists being targeted? What's their response?
In fact, the civil liberties are always the victim of this curse, if I can say, because the government sometimes uses what is going on as an excuse to repress the human rights activists and the journalists, and this is a very bad thing. There have been arrests, there have been harassments against journalists, intimidations, and also trials, and these things were happening a lot during this year and last year.
Yemeni journalist Nasser Arabyee he writes for the Gulf News in Dubai and the Cairo-based Al-Ahram weekly. That does it for the broadcast. Happy birthday to Hugh Grand. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Sharif Odo Kudus, Aramate, Anjali Kamat, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.